Have you ever asked yourself why everything feels so heavy? Not just the deadlines or the bills or the emails, but something deeper, a kind of invisible weight, the kind that doesn't go away when you sleep, or when you go on vacation, or when you finally cross something off your to-do list. It's a weariness you carry in your chest, a pressure in your mind, like you're constantly being chased by something you can't quite name, something that says, "You're not doing enough. Keep moving. Try harder." Sound familiar? You're not alone. This pressure, this modern sickness, has infected almost everyone. We live in a world obsessed with achievement, addicted to control, and allergic to stillness. But here's the truth you weren't told. You weren't designed to live like this. And trying to force your way through life might be the very reason you feel so lost. From the moment we can walk, we're taught to compete, to strive, to build a life that looks good on paper. We're told that success belongs to those who wake up earlier, stay up later, hustle harder, sacrifice more. So we internalize this voice. We make it our own. We repeat the mantras: no pain, no gain. Winners never quit. Push through. But eventually, something strange happens. You start to notice that even when you're doing all the right things, something inside you is crumbling. You begin to feel like you're running on a treadmill that never turns off. No matter how fast you go, you're not getting anywhere that matters. You feel tired, but you don't know how to rest. You feel unfulfilled, but you're too busy to stop and question why. This is where a new way must begin. There is a concept from ancient Taoist philosophy that might be the antidote to our modern burnout. It's called Wu Wei, pronounced Wu Wei. At first glance, it translates to non-action, but that's misleading. Wu Wei doesn't mean doing nothing. It means not forcing. It's the art of action without struggle, movement without resistance, flow without tension. Think of a tree. It grows without rushing. It bends with the wind instead of snapping against it. It doesn't try to be more than it is, and yet it becomes magnificent. That's Wu Wei. It's not laziness. It's the deepest kind of wisdom. Imagine life not as a battlefield, but as a piece of music. You don't listen to a song just to get to the end. You listen to feel it, to move with it, to be swept up in its rhythm. Yet most of us treat life like it's something to conquer, a mountain to climb, a game to win. And in doing so, we forget to experience it. Wu Wei invites us back to the dance. It teaches that the more we try to dominate life, the more life resists us. But when we let go, when we stop paddling upstream, we begin to feel the current that was always there to carry us. One man helped reveal this truth to the modern world. Alan Watts, a British philosopher and speaker, devoted his life to translating the wisdom of the East for the Western mind. But he didn't just explain Taoism or Zen Buddhism. He embodied them. Watts said something revolutionary. The meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and so obvious and so simple. And yet, everybody rushes around in a great panic, as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. Let that sink in. We've created an entire culture based on doing, but Watts reminded us that being is enough, that the universe isn't a machine to be operated, it's a mystery to be lived. He often spoke in metaphors about rivers, music, wind, and water, because these are the languages of the Tao. Nature doesn't try to control, it simply responds. And when we learn to do the same, something incredible happens. Life stops being a struggle and starts becoming something sacred. Let's take a moment to visualize something. Picture a wide flowing river, calm in some places, chaotic in others, but always moving. Now imagine a person in that river, thrashing, kicking, trying desperately to swim against the current. They're using all their strength, but getting nowhere. They're exhausted, frustrated, panicking. This is how many of us live every day, trying to control everything, forcing plans to work, chasing relationships, clinging to what's already leaving, fearing what we can't change. But what happens when that person in the river stops fighting? When they let their body float, they're still moving. But now, they're aligned with the river, not battling it. This is Wu Wei in action. Letting go of resistance, not as surrender to defeat, but as surrender to trust. A common fear arises here. If I stop forcing things, won't everything fall apart? Won't I lose my edge? Won't I fail? The answer is no. Because Wu Wei doesn't mean you stop acting. It means you act wisely, with timing, with harmony, with clarity. You still plant seeds. You still pursue your dreams, but you stop yanking the roots to make them grow faster. Letting go is not giving up. It's stepping aside so that life can meet you halfway. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Western culture wasn't built on flow. It was built on force. The Industrial Revolution taught us to view everything, including ourselves, as machines. Productivity, efficiency, optimization. Even our minds are trained like factories. Fix it, plan it, control it. We even try to hack happiness, as if joy is a task to be completed instead of a state to be experienced. But what if the reason you're burned out isn't because you're weak, but because you're constantly going against your nature? You're not a machine. You're a living process, a river, a breath, a heartbeat. And the sooner you remember that, the sooner peace returns. Let's bring this down from the clouds. How can you live Wu Wei in modern life? Start with awareness. When you're stuck in traffic, notice the urge to tense up. Then, release it. When a conversation doesn't go how you planned, notice your impulse to defend or fix. Then, just listen. When you feel behind in life, notice your panic. Then ask yourself, am I forcing something that's not ready? You can also bring Wu Wei into your work. Instead of trying to push through blocks, pause, take a walk, step back. Let your mind breathe and watch as clarity returns on its own. In relationships, practice presence over performance. You don't need to manage every outcome. Sometimes love grows in silence, in patience, in space. In your goals, stay committed, but let go of the timeline. Let go of needing it to look a certain way. Let go of the illusion that your worth depends on your productivity. Wu Wei is not an escape from life. It's an invitation into real life. Beneath the noise, beneath the pressure, beneath the masks. Every breath you take is a reminder that life is not an emergency. The sun rises without your permission. The tide moves without your input. Flowers bloom without your effort. You are part of that rhythm, not separate from it. And when you return to that rhythm, you return to yourself. If you've made it this far, it's probably because something inside you already knows. This way of living, the pushing, the chasing, the controlling, isn't working. You don't need another strategy. You need a shift in perspective, one where you trust more, force less, act with intention, not tension. Listen more deeply to the wisdom already within you. This isn't about perfection. It's about presence. It's about surrendering the illusion of control and discovering the deeper power that rises in its place. That's the quiet revolution Wu Wei offers, and it begins when you stop fighting life and start dancing with it. So, breathe. Let your shoulders drop, and for once, just be here, not racing, not fixing, just listening, because this is where the shift begins. And you are exactly where you need to be. There's something remarkable about nature. It doesn't resist what it is. The tree never wishes it were a river. The fox doesn't question whether it's doing enough. The rain doesn't apologize for falling, and the sun doesn't check to see if it's on schedule. In the natural world, things simply are. They grow, they die, they transform, they return. But we, humans, have forgotten how to be natural. We live as if we're separate from the earth, separate from each other, even separate from ourselves. We try to improve every part of our lives like it's a project under construction, and in that process, we lose the simplicity of being. Wu Wei is a return to that natural simplicity. It invites you to stop micromanaging your existence and to start collaborating with it. It's not passive, it's responsive. It's not lazy, it's intuitive. When you observe nature long enough, you realize nothing forces and everything flows. Let's talk about the paradox of control. The more you try to control, the less control you actually have. Why? Because real life doesn't obey blueprints. It twists, it bends, it surprises, and sometimes it breaks the very plans you built your identity on. What Wu Wei teaches us is that control isn't safety, it's limitation. You spend so much energy trying to hold everything together that you miss the beauty of letting things fall apart and rebuild themselves naturally. We're so afraid of uncertainty that we grip even tighter. But what if uncertainty isn't the enemy? What if it's the opening? What if every time something doesn't go your way, life is actually pointing you toward a better way? Wu Wei is about having the humility to admit you don't always know best, and the wisdom to trust that life might. There's a classic Taoist story that perfectly illustrates Wu Wei. An old farmer had a horse. One day, the horse ran away. His neighbors came to express their sympathy. "What bad luck," they said. The farmer simply replied, "Maybe." The next day, the horse returned, bringing with it 3 wild horses. The neighbors came again. "What good luck," they said. The farmer replied, "Maybe." Later, the farmer's son tried to tame one of the wild horses, fell, and broke his leg. Again, the neighbors came. "What bad luck," they said. And again the farmer replied, "Maybe." A week later, soldiers came to the village, conscripting all the young men for war, but the farmer's son was left behind, thanks to his broken leg. Now the neighbors said, "What good luck?" And once more, the farmer said, "Maybe." The wisdom of this story is clear. We don't always know what's good or bad in the moment. We label, we judge, we resist. But life is much larger than our immediate perspective. Wu Wei invites you to adopt the farmer's mindset: calm, open, present, responsive, but not reactive. One of the hardest things about embracing Wu Wei is this: it requires unlearning. We've been taught all our lives that success is linear, that effort equals results, that rest equals laziness, that productivity is morality. But look around. Is the most stressed person really the most successful? Is the most rigid schedule producing the most joy? Is control bringing you peace, or just more things to manage? To live differently, you must think differently. And to think differently, you must let go of what no longer serves you, even if it once protected you. Wu Wei is not a technique. It's a rewiring of your way of being. It starts with honesty, it grows through awareness, and it flourishes in presence. Interestingly, modern science has a term that reflects Wu Wei: the flow state. You've felt it before. That feeling when you're writing, painting, running, speaking, and time disappears. You're not thinking, you're not judging, you're just doing. Not from effort, from alignment. In that moment, you are fully engaged, not forcing, just flowing. This is Wu Wei in the language of neuroscience. Studies show that the flow state leads to better performance, faster learning, deeper satisfaction. Not because you pushed harder, but because you let your natural intelligence take over. It turns out, your body and mind already know what to do, if you'll just stop interfering. Let's talk about relationships. Most people try to force harmony. We think if we say the right thing, fix the other person, explain harder, love more loudly, we'll finally get the connection we crave. But connection is not a product of effort. It's a product of presence. of honesty, of space. Have you ever noticed how some of the best conversations happen when you're not trying to have one? Or how silence with the right person can feel more meaningful than hours of dialogue? That's Wu Wei at play. It's knowing when to speak and when to listen, when to hold on and when to let go, when to lean in and when to trust the space between you. You don't need to orchestrate love. You need to create the conditions where love can breathe. What about when life falls apart? When you lose the job? When the relationship ends? When illness knocks on the door? When the plan shatters? That's where Wu Wei becomes more than an idea. It becomes a practice of survival. In crisis, the instinct is to panic, to control, to demand answers. But life doesn't operate on demand. Wu Wei teaches you to breathe, to let the wave hit, and then to float. Not because you've given up, but because you've accepted what is. And in that acceptance, something sacred arises: resilience. Not the resilience that grits its teeth, but the kind that bends without breaking, that adapts, that listens, that flows. One powerful tool of Wu Wei is learning to become the observer of your mind. Most of us are caught in our thoughts, believing every fear, every judgment, every story we tell ourselves. But Wu Wei asks, can you step back? Can you watch the storm instead of being swept away by it? This doesn't mean detachment or indifference. It means choosing not to react automatically. It means noticing your patterns before they run the show. You are not your thoughts. You are the space beneath your thoughts. And in that space, there is peace, there is wisdom, there is Wu Wei. Let me speak directly to something that plagues millions of people quietly: the feeling of being behind. Behind in your career, behind in relationships, behind in life. This feeling is a symptom of force. It comes from comparing your path to someone else's, as if life were a race. But here's the truth. You are not behind. You are exactly where you are meant to be. Your growth is happening right now, even if it's not visible. Your timing is unique. Your unfolding is sacred. The river doesn't apologize for taking the long way, and neither should you. We've been taught to measure success by outcomes, money, titles, recognition, control. But the Tao offers a different measurement. How peaceful is your mind? How aligned is your life with your values? How present are you for the moments that matter? How often do you feel like you're forcing versus flowing? These are not small questions. They are life-defining questions. Because in the end, no one remembers the to-do list. They remember how you made them feel, how you lived, how deeply you allowed yourself to be here. And Wu Wei invites you to be fully, deeply, beautifully here. So, what now? Maybe this is the moment you begin again, not by doing more, but by doing less with more awareness. Maybe today is the day you stop trying to fight the river of life and instead float, trusting that the current knows where to take you, even when you can't see around the bend. Maybe this is your permission to rest, not because you're weak, but because you're wise. To pause, not because you're lost, but because you're listening. To let go, not out of failure, but from a deep growing trust that life has a rhythm far older and far more intelligent than anything your mind could construct. Let this be your turning point. From force to flow, from resistance to surrender, from striving to being, not being passive, but being present. That's the heart of Wu Wei. It's not about removing effort. It's about removing unnecessary tension. It's about learning when to act and when to wait, when to hold on and when to release. It's about living not like the hammer that strikes, but like the wind that moves through everything, felt, but never forced. When you walk through life with this grace, everything changes. You stop obsessing over timing. You stop comparing your path to others. You stop trying to fix what was never broken. And something unexpected happens. You begin to trust yourself again. Not the image you project, not the voice in your head, but your deeper self. The part of you that knows how to listen, how to feel, how to move in harmony with what is. Imagine a life where you're no longer at war with time, where rest isn't a reward, it's a rhythm, where silence isn't uncomfortable, it's sacred, where life no longer feels like something to survive, but something to welcome. This is the invitation of Wu Wei. And maybe, just maybe, this isn't the end of the video. It's the beginning of something more real, more gentle, more you. Let go of what you thought life should be. Let it become what it's meant to be. And as you do, remember, you don't need to force the river. You are the river. And it's time to flow.